So what time is it right now? 8 o'clock? How many of you guys were at work today? Are you guys a little tired?
Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to make you a promise right here and right now. I'm not going to waste your time today. When I look back at high school and college and every single lecturer and person who came in and gave me a presentation did not have a profound effect on my life. I graduated college with zero idea what I wanted to do. And so that can't be pleasant, like, right? Every single time someone calls? All right. But so what I'm going to promise you guys today is that I'm not going to speak in platitudes. I'm not going to give you guys pie-in-the-sky theories. I'm going to tell you guys things that have happened to me, stories, actual systems that I have put into action that are responsible for my success at a young age. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, very brief backstory. So I grew up right outside of Washington, D.C., Reston, Virginia, if we've got any Nova people in the house. There we go. Nova, represent. So I went to South Lakes High School. I was a subpar student. I moved from Hawaii, and I was much more focused on partying, women, trying to make money, and not really going to class so much. So I graduated from high school, couldn't get into any colleges that I want. I went to a subpar college, and then saw all my friends having fun at Virginia Tech and said, maybe it's time I turn it on for once. So I did that. Transferred to Virginia Tech, enrolled in the hospitality and tourism management plan because that sounded like it was going to be a cool way to make money and something that I might be good at. I really didn't have any interest in it. So that's how I got my start. And then right about 2 weeks before graduating, I started asking myself what it was that I was passionate about, what my purpose was, and I had no answer. So I decided to drive to Alaska for 2 months. I just read Into the Wild and took it a little too seriously. And so I ended up going to Alaska. And I found my passion and my purpose in entrepreneurship and helping others. Came back to DC. I was able to start an organization called Dreams for Kids DC, which is still in operation. We have a new executive director and team that's running that. And then over the past 2 years, I started my own branding communications firm, Gatsby Smile. And on top of that, I also have Ability List, which you can think of as Craigslist for the disabled community. So I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. When I talk about all that stuff, it would not have happened if I had not emphasized what we're talking about today. And that is connecting versus networking. Networking, dirty word. Networking is establishing face-level connections with people that you want to have a relationship with. But it's up here. It's head high. Connecting is establishing deeper, firmer, more lasting bonds with the people you need to be connecting with. In today's hyper-connected world, if you are not connected, if you're not connecting, you're out of sight, out of mind with all these people. So what we're going to do today is teach you guys 8 of the core principles of connecting. Every single one. I hope you guys are writing down. I'm going to give you prompts at the beginning of every single session, and we can give you some prompts to write down exactly what we're talking about. You guys ready to go?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, how many of you guys have gone to job fairs at school? Raise your hands. How many of you have walked out of those job fairs in like 10 or 15 minutes? Most of you. Me too. Doesn't it kind of feel so often when we're in these organized networking opportunities that the conversations we have are robotic, monotonous? What do you do? What's the pay? What are the benefits? Who, what, when? Not a whole lot of why. So what I realized when I started going to all these events and walking out is that we're kind of conditioning ourselves to have conversations that we don't care about. We're asking people questions, and we know that the answers that we're likely going to get aren't necessarily what we're most interested in. And so there's something that we can do when we're in an opportunity to meet new people, to network. And that is all about asking better questions. So on the top of your paper, I want you guys to write, what do you do? All right, now you guys ready? Now I want you to put a big X through that statement. How many of you guys get just like enthralled or really excited when someone asks you, what do you do? It's pretty boilerplate, right? So what we can do, and what we're going to do right now, is actually go over some questions that we can replace that with. So a six-word phrase changed my life. And those words are, what are you most excited about? You guys think about that. What are you most excited about? There is no wrong answer to that question. The answer that someone is going to give you is likely something that they want to talk about because it's what they're literally most excited about. You can ask that question casually. You can ask it to someone that you're hanging out with in the park. They'll give you a great answer. You talk to someone who's working at Goldman Sachs. What's most exciting in the finance industry right now? What are they going to tell you? They're going to talk about ideas. What's most exciting? What are you most excited about? Here's another one. We focus on what's next. What's the next big thing you have coming up? What's the next big project? What about socially? What's the next big trip you have coming up? Focuses on forward-facing events and ideas as opposed to the past and what we already know. And the third, and you guys, this one is just, it works everywhere, is favorite/best. If you ask people about their favorite aspects of their job, you're going to get insight into why that job actually matters and is of interest. If you ask someone what their best experience has been this summer, they're going to talk about something awesome that you really want to do. You guys see how that transforms the conversation from what do you do to actually having conversations that you care about? If we're having monotonous conversations over and over and over again, we're going to leave in 15 minutes. If we have conversations that we care about, we'll stay for the full 60. We'll meet the people that we're supposed to. So that's our first one. So moving on, I want you guys to write number 2. And I want you guys to write in big letters, G.P.S. So what does a GPS do? Navigates. Helps us get places. There you go, triangulate. It helps us get where we want to go. So I was in the hospitality program at Virginia Tech, like I mentioned. No idea what I wanted to do after graduation. And my senior year, we got invited to a conference called Renaissance Weekend. My mom is an author. I would never have been invited here if not for her. And this is a conglomerate of some of the greatest thinkers and doers of our time. Astronauts, athletes, entertainers, scientists, and then me, who's going out 4 nights a week and has no idea what he wants to do with his life. So that entire conference, have you guys ever walked into an event and just felt like you weren't worthy of the people around you? Whether they're more experienced, they're wealthier than you are, they're more knowledgeable. It's not a good feeling. It hits you right here. I had that for 3 days straight. So just eyes pasted to the floor, not really having any substantive conversations. And then on that last day, I saw a session called Living a Life Worth Lived. Living a Life Worth Living. There were 5 people on the stage. It was a panel. And they were going to go down one by one and share their number one piece of advice for living a life worth living. And the first guy started. This guy named Mark Kelly, astronaut. He talks about hard work, putting every ounce of your energy into what it is that you love. That hard work is where you're going to find fulfillment. I said, great. I was very lazy in those times. Sounded good, but didn't apply to me. The next person got up. It was a basketball player. They talked about cultivating the important relationships in your life. Your family, your friends. At the end of your days, what's really going to matter are your friends. I said, I have a lot of friends. I have no idea what I want to do with my life. Didn't really matter. So they went down one by one by one, and it all sounded good, but I still sat there in the back, unworthy, pit in my stomach, did not feel good. And then the last guy stood up, popped out of his chair, short, probably about here, orange hair, Harry Potter glasses, and Steve Robbins starts to speak. And he very calmly says, some of you will wake up tomorrow and ask yourself, what did I do with the last 10 years of my life? He said, you'll either like that answer or you won't, and you'll have an opportunity to change it. And he bridged. He said, some of you will wake up 10 years from now. You'll ask yourself, what did I do with the last 10 years of my life? Did I like my answer? You either will or you won't, and you'll have an opportunity to change it. Something clicked for me in that moment. What he helped me realize was that me having no idea what I wanted to do with my life, my passion or my purpose, was a question that I could either try to answer right now, and if I didn't, it was something that I was going to have to answer in 10 years. I appreciated that not having an answer is my answer, and I would much rather figure that out at 21 than 31. So I went back to Virginia Tech. I ended up getting a job with the Trump Hotel Corps, but I keep asking myself these questions. What am I passionate about? What is my purpose? And so I facilitate this relationship with Stever. And Stever says, Andrew, do you know the difference between pleasure and happiness? And I said, no. And he said, pleasure is excitement. It feels good, but it's fleeting. It is a night at the bar. It's like something very simple that feels good while you're doing it, but as soon as it's done, no more kind feelings. He said happiness is fulfilling. The acts that bring you happiness fulfill you and stay with you for a long time, days, weeks, months after. I realized that I did not have a lot of happiness in my life. I had a lot of excitement up and down, but nothing that truly filled my soul with joy. So I left that job at Trump on the table. My father was moving to Alaska. I decided to give him a call, and I said, Dad, how are you getting there? He said, I'm flying. I said, cancel your plane tickets. Let's drive it. I knew that I needed to answer these questions then. Anything that I wanted, I couldn't base in my own convictions because I didn't know why I wanted anything. And that was the really important justification and rationale there, is that it's very, very difficult to talk about what you want if you have no why you want it behind it. And I want you guys to write that down. What versus why. It's easy to say what you want, but do you have a why behind it? Why it's meaningful, why it's going to make you happy versus exciting. So you guys, like we talked about before, there's something that helps us get where we want to go. That's your G.P.S, but we can have our own G.P.S. So now on the left side of your paper, I want you to write G.P.S. So G stands for goals. And our goals are not where we want to be. Our goals are not jobs or positions. Our jobs are these two things. What I want to get better at and what I want to learn. What are your goals this summer? What is it that you want to get better at? What do you want to learn? I want to get better at communicating, at organizing. I want to understand social media, user acquisition, graphic design. I want to understand international markets. What are those things? You have to understand that G, your tangible goals. Next, we have our P, which is our passions. Nothing worthwhile in this world requires little work. But when you love and believe in what you're doing, when you're passionate about it, you have conviction, that's when you get energy from your chest, from your heart, not from your head. It's what's going to enable you to work hard enough to go after what you want. So our passions, we have 4 C's. The first, I want you to write creation. What is it that you're passionate about creating? Is it art? Are they events? Are they communities? That's passion. Next is curiosity. What is it that you have? And if I'm going too fast, guys, definitely tell me to slow down, all right? So C stands for curiosity. What is it that you are infinitely curious about? What do you want to learn more about? all the time. That curiosity evokes passion. And the last two, cause. What are the causes that you're passionate about? Whether it's the welfare of others around the world, whether it's your community. Cause. What are issues that you believe in, that you want to support? And that last one is community. That evokes people. People that you feel connected to and that you want to support. Whether that is a group of fraternity or sorority brothers, whether that is immigrants coming to the United States, whether those are Aborigines in the rainforest in Brazil. Who are the communities that you want to support? And you guys, that is your G and your P, and your S are your skills. What am I good at? Naturally, I'm a natural leader. I'm a natural organizer. I'm a natural communicator. It is vital that you guys don't just know these things, happenstance. To actually be in conversation and to relay back, if you're with a decision maker who says, what can you contribute to our team? You need to be able to go down your list and not only talk about your skills, but what are instances where you can prove to them that you've used them? What are events? What are activities that you have manifested that prove you have those skills? Being able to tell people those stories is what is going to make a difference, what is going to make them remember you. So that's your G.P.S. Very, very vital. And when you guys have this foundational knowledge about who you are, what you want, why you want it, you guys are going to begin to have the energy to put in the work that it takes to live a life you want and to get that career that you want. I promise you it's going to require hard work. When you have those things answered, it's a lot easier to work that hard. Sound good? Perfect. So the next, I want you guys to write down interested, and then a greater symbol looking at it. And on the right, I want you to write interesting. I remember about a year into my me running Dreams for Kids, I got invited to a conference called Maverick Underground. Maverick Underground is the probably #1 internet marketing conference in the world. So I got invited there with all these big shots because one of our board members happened to be the founder. So we go there, and this is a year after I've been running Dreams for Kids. I was really proud of everything that I was doing, but I also had this ego, and I wanted to prove to others that I was doing awesome things. I wanted to establish myself as an authority, someone who belonged there. And it all came to a head during this one conversation. There's a guy named Neil who runs Mindvalley. Mindvalley is one of the largest independent publishers in the world. Remember that I'm talking to Neil, and he's a super smart guy. Have you guys ever been in a conversation with someone where they were contributing so much value that you were kind of concerned that you weren't going to be able to put something back into that conversation? Yeah? So that's where I was. So I literally went into my head. I'm thinking about, okay, what can I say next that's going to impress him, that's going to impress him? And then I kind of stopped thinking for a second, and I realized that he stopped talking, and the expression on his face says nothing more but, I just asked you a question. And I literally had no idea what he had said to me. And he's a very cool guy, so he just goes, all right, man, I'll see you later. And that was the last time I talked to Neil at that conference. I've joked with him about it afterwards. But it was a wake-up call. That trying to put on a show, to project some sort of image of ourselves, takes us out of the moment. And Maya Angelou says people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, but they will never forget the way that you feel, the way that you make them feel. And if you're not present, if you are not actually listening to people, you're going to make them feel bad. They're not going to feel valued with you. They will not feel good. They will not remember you. They will not care about anything that you have to say. That's why it's always important, going into any of these situations, to focus on being interested versus being interesting. Because I guarantee if you go in with that mentality, you are going to evoke a positive perception in that person's eyes. Because their opinions are going to feel valued. They'll felt like they had a platform to express themselves fully. And that will make all the difference. So now in the same section, I want you guys to write one thing. I want you to write take in big letters. And with a big greater symbol, I want you to write turn next to it. Can anyone guess what this means? The greatest leaders, the most effective professionals, are the best listeners. When you are in conversation with people, be thinking about not taking the conversation, but turning it back on them. Think about the last time you were at a dinner table. Someone was talking about their experience last weekend, how great it was, something new they've learned, and then you coming in and just saying, oh yeah, I had a great experience, there was something awesome that I did last week, I learned this too. Do you see what you just did there? You didn't validate that they had said anything worthwhile. All you did was took that conversation to express your own ideas. Simple construct. If someone's going to contribute something as value, the mere act of turning that conversation back to them, asking a follow-up conversation, acknowledges what they're saying, makes them feel heard, and enables you to contribute value to conversations without having to tell everyone how awesome you are. I want you guys to challenge yourselves while you're in New York City. Whether you're going out with a group, you have the Yankee game coming up, the Yankee game on Friday. If you challenge yourself to turn the conversation and not take it for an entire night, that was one of the first challenges that I ever did to myself that showed me I needed to be working on it, because I saw that every time someone was contributing something in conversation, my first instinct was to yank that thing back to myself. And I said, that's not right. That's some ego, some sort of insecurity. So I promise you, if you guys focus on the 2 T's and being more interested than interesting, you are going to be remembered positively by the people you're connecting with. Sound good? Awesome. This one is super simple, but one of the most important lessons that I've ever learned and transformed the effectiveness of my interns in the office. I want you guys to write down G.P.S. A lot of people use that kind of cliche quote. They say it's not about the destination, it's the journey, right? You've all heard it before. Sometimes isn't it hard to get on the actual journey? Like you don't know what step I need to be taking, who do I need to be calling, who do I need to be writing to, what do I need to be doing there? I remember that when I got back from Alaska, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that I wanted to help people. And then finally it hit me. I wanted to start my own nonprofit. So I get jazzed up, I'm excited, I'm talking to all my friends. Everyone's coming back to me saying, that's great. And then it kind of settles down and I'm at my house one night when I get back from work and I say, oh crap, I have no idea how to start a nonprofit. Kind of a vital part of starting a nonprofit. And I remembered a friend of mine, his name's Adam Braun. He runs an organization called Pencils of Promise. And he has a system called G.P.S. You guys know what that stands for?
Jim,
That's our GTS. It stands for Google That Shit. You guys, those 3 letters will transform your ability to contribute value anywhere. I kid you not. Any one of those moments, you guys have all had them since you've been here this summer. When you say to yourself, I don't know X. Have you had one of those where you say, I don't know how to be successful, how to use my passion for music to make money. I don't know how to actually climb the corporate ladder of this enormous company by the age I want to. Whatever that I don't know is, that gap between you getting where you want to go and actually taking the first step, take that I don't know question, put it into Google. I kid you not. You know what's going to come up is some of the best resources and best practices and industry knowledge that you're going to find anywhere else. You guys cannot be happy with stagnation. And if you're in those moments, if you're asking yourself and you're saying, I don't know, and you haven't taken the time to honestly GTS it, you are the only person at fault in that moment. That's a simple one, but also at work. I promise you that every single employer in this city wants entry-level employees who are one thing, resourceful. Employees who can solve problems that do not have instruction manuals attached to them. GTS, when you guys have a question that you can't solve, GTS it before. Someone asks you to do a project that you're not sure of, GTS it. Get an answer there so that you can validate whatever work you do or questions that you might have through that, and I promise you'll be more effective this summer. So then that moves on. After that, I remember that when I GTS how to start my nonprofit, finally I ended up getting my certificate. I'm ready to start Dreams for Kids. But then all the GTS kind of hits ahead, and I'm like, all right, we're doing it, we're moving forward, but we're not necessarily scaling at the level that we want. And so I actually started looking around DC, and I remember that there are some of the more innovative nonprofit leaders on the planet blocks from me. And I start looking at all these people, and I'm saying, man, I'm so busy, I can only imagine how busy they are. And you guys ever been there where you want to reach out to someone, but in your head you keep telling yourself, how is a person who gets 1,000 emails a day, who's flying on like Lear jets back from coast to coast, how are they going to spend time on me to answer my questions? Why do I deserve that? That's how I felt. And so I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to create a plan. So now what I want you guys to do on the left side of your paper, I want you to write thank. Below that, I want you to write compliment.
Did you say thank or
Thank, T-H-A. Below that, I want you to write time and date. And then below that, I want you to write resource. So you guys, we started with that one word, thank. This is one of the easiest things you can do that is going to transform the way your messages, written and verbal, are received by any one of your seniors moving forward. I receive on average probably about 200 emails a day. Guess how many of those say, thank you for taking the time to read my message, or I appreciate any time you can take to read my note and get back to me every single day. Usually about 0. Simply taking the time in the beginning of your outreach to say, I can only imagine how busy you are, and I appreciate any time you can take to read my note. In whatever iteration you guys want to use, I can only imagine how busy you are. I appreciate any time you can take to read my note. Will expand and scale the likelihood that that email gets read and responded to exponentially. So with any outreach to individuals, to seniors, to leaders, people that we want to be talking to, we need to lead with that thanking them for their time. That's section number 1 in any outreach. The second, doesn't it feel good when someone tells you that you're awesome? It does, right? So don't hold back. If you want to reach out to someone, whether he's the head of a music label, whether he's a VP at Goldman, whether he's an artist creating amazing work, in that second section, you say something particular about what they've done, their accomplishments that you respect. Stroke their ego. Make them feel good. You really do think they're that awesome. It helps to feel that. When you feel appreciated as a person, you're going to hold that person getting in touch in high regard. So you want to compliment their accomplishments. That third one, and this is so huge, I put myself in the position when I get outreach, when I get contacts, is you want to give people specific time and date that you'd like to talk to them. And you want to be brief with your time. Because what happens if someone gets in touch and they say, I'd love to spend time talking to you? How long are they looking for? Do they want 10 minutes? Do they want an hour? I don't know. It's unsure. So what you want to do, always ask for a brief period of time. If you're reaching out to these people to win others over, especially your seniors, reach out and say, if you have 15 minutes to chat with me, I greatly appreciate any time you could make. So now he sees 15 minutes. Now he understands, okay, that's a pretty insignificant chunk of my time. And then what happens if you actually give him a date? If you say, next Thursday, so now he actually has a time frame. You say, next Thursday at 3 p.m., Now all he has to do, if he's available, one word. What is it? Yes. You see how you've made saying yes so much easier now? So always give a time and a date and say, if that doesn't work, I'm happy to make myself available. But when you give a time and a date, you are much more likely to get a yes. And the last, sometimes it's hard to reach out to people because we feel like we're just taking. I'm asking for advice. We're not necessarily helping these people. At least that's how we look at it. But you guys, we can position ourselves as a resource and as someone who is actually trying to give to these people with one little sentence. If there's any way that I can help on your future or upcoming projects, I'd be happy to. When you close with this little sentence, you transform the entire feel of that outreach. What you're now doing is positioning yourself as someone who wants to help them in any way that you might be able. You're going out on a note of, how can I actually contribute to something that you care about? Again, if you follow those 4 things in every single outreach, I promise you, those people that you want to be reaching out to, those decision makers, are going to be that much more likely to buy in. And one of the smartest things I ever learned is that I work with a lot of interns. And a lot of times I've asked them, what do you want to do after college? What's your dream job? And a lot of them would say, I have no idea. Are a lot of you guys in that place right now? What's your dream job? Who knows? A few? Can I actually hear what your dream job would be? Yeah, Pink.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I want to go into ministry.
Into ministry? Very cool. Conviction on it. Who else? What are your guys' dream jobs? I want to hear. Yeah.
I want to work for operations for Cirque du Soleil.
Rad. That's awesome. Anyone else? How about right here?
Post-production.
Post-production? Very cool. That's awesome. One more. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'd love to, if I could get the chance, I'd love to be an underwriter at Goldman.
Very cool. There you go. So it's awesome to have that clarity, but oftentimes it's difficult, even to get to where you guys are. You probably did a lot of soul searching. So rather than asking yourself, what's your dream job? Start asking yourself this question. Who has the job that I want? Because what that does is takes you out of the theoretical. What's my dream job? You're not thinking about necessarily something that is an actual job or a position. If you ask yourself, who has the job that I want? Now your search is based on finding an actual person. And you guys, once you found an actual person, you can look on a LinkedIn page and see, where did this guy work to get where he's at? You can actually reach out to this person and say just that. I love what you're doing in your job. I would love to do something similar. Could I actually take some time to learn more about how you got where you are? I'd love to see how I could help on any projects you have coming up. See how that kind of transitions your ability to actually go on a track like that? Okay, great. Awesome. So one of the last things that we said there was about positioning yourself as a resource, right? And this kind of approach, positioning yourself as a resource, was the biggest lesson that I learned as an entrepreneur at a young age, and probably the most impactful. On the top of your, or wherever you guys are on your page, could you write, give first mentality? I always remember a few months after I'd been running Dreams for Kids, I ended up running into one of the founders of the Summit Series at a concert in Washington, D.C. Do any of you guys know what Summit Series is? You've heard of it? Nope. So it's this incredible entrepreneurial event that brings together what started as like the 18 to 35 set. So younger entrepreneurs who were doing amazing things. So you can think of that as like the Sean Parkers, the founder of Tumblr, of College Humor, all these enormous companies, to give them an opportunity to connect, talk about ideas, the really interesting things they were doing, problems they were having as young, successful entrepreneurs. They also brought together some of the leading edge speakers in the world. So we're talking Ted Turner, Richard Branson, Bill Clinton, some really high level people. So I go into this meeting with Jeff, the founder I'd met, And I'm just talking about how awesome what they're doing is. They're building such a great community. And I don't expect to have a seat at that table. I'm running a small children's nonprofit in Washington, D.C. But I remember that in that conversation, in passing, I said, so who are the types of people you want to connect with? And he started telling me. He said, well, we've honestly got all of our attendees down, but we want to connect with the most badass speakers on the planet. And because my mom was an author, now what I was able to do is actually go into my own network of people that I knew, and I knew that I'd actually become friends with one of her friends who was a pretty rad speaker. So we left that meeting. I remember calling up Keith. And I called Keith and I said, hey, these guys are doing something incredible. I think it'd be a cool opportunity for you to connect with them. He said, yeah, put us in touch. So I ended up sending them an email. Keith gets on board. He turns into one of their keynote speakers. About a week and a half later, I hear from Jeff. Jeff says, Andrew, I can't thank you enough for introducing me to Keith. We're so excited to have him on board. And then he says, and I have a little surprise. And I said, what's that? He says, we want you to come to the conference as our guest. And I said, Jeff, that's awesome. I'd love to go. But there was no way on my little nonprofit salary I could afford to go to the Summit Series, which had a hefty price tag. And he says, no, he's like, we want to support people who are doing the kinds of things that you're doing and working the way that you're working. He said, we're going to comp your admission. So I got to go to one of the most incredible, influential entrepreneurial events in the world as a 22-year-old who ran an $80,000 a year nonprofit. At that event, I was able to raise $15,000 in 3 days, and I got 3 board members that are still with the organization to this day. I can say with certainty that none of that would have happened if I sat down with Jeff and tried to talk about how great what we were doing was. If I had tried to tell him why I was awesome, I would not have had a seat at that table. I would not have been invited. I would not have been comped. The reason that I was invited is because rather than trying to help myself, I tried to see how I could help them because I believed in what they were doing. And so you guys might be sitting there right now asking yourselves, what do I have to contribute, to give? How can I be helping these people that are in these senior level roles, that are this level of wealth, that have this level of expertise? And the answer is easy. So I want you guys to write down 3 more things on the left side of your paper. The first, resources and time. You guys, there are questions that we can ask when we're in conversations with senior leaders, individuals who we want to establish relationships with. Those questions are all about identifying projects that they have coming up. So, I have 2 great questions that will work for this. That is, do you have any major projects coming up? You identify a specific instance that that person is focusing on. Big deal. When someone identifies a tangible thing they're working on, you know what you can say? If there's any way that I can help, I hope you'll let me know. This next question, where you guys are working in your internships, I promise you that this is the one question that will help you identify opportunities to make significant contributions this summer. Whoever your manager is, whoever your boss is, if you're to sit them down and say this, is there anything we're not doing that you would like to be? Is there anything we are not doing that you would like to be? They will tell you the truth. I'm going to stop and let you guys write that one because it really is that valuable. If you ask that question, they will likely tell you something that they care about that they have not had an opportunity to work on. You've just identified a perfect opportunity to take leadership on something that matters. Now you can say, I'd be interested in helping you with that project if you'd like to get it off the ground. So now, rather than working in this task-based world, now you have an opportunity to lead an actual project. And again, you are offering your help to them. So that is the first, our resources and our time that we can give to people. The next, I want you guys to write down I-I-A. You guys, that stands for ideas, information, and activities. You can think of this as you reading a great article on something you're interested in, the industry that you've chosen. You can think about watching a great TED Talk and absolutely loving it. You can think about seeing some great free entrepreneurial networking event that you're so excited about, or some free concert in Central Park. What happens when you connect with people, you ask strategic questions, you get them to share things that they're passionate about, things that they're interested in. And so when you're following up with these people, whether it's a senior at your work, whether it's your boss, whether it's a friend, someone that you want to establish a relationship with, we need to think about the things that we know and more readily share those things with the people we care about, with the people that we want to establish relationships with. If we share our IIA, if I share a TED Talk that's changed my life with my friend up here, now what happens if she watches that TED Talk and it inspires her to change her career and to go out there and to do incredible things? She is always going to associate that change with me. If I shared a guide on SEO marketing to my friends over here, it totally makes them the intern of the year at Goldman Sachs. They're going to attribute that change to me. We can always help people by sharing the things that have had an impact on us with others. We will resonate deeper and longer with the people who we care about and who we want to establish relationships with. And the last is simply by sharing our network. And like I said before, who do you want to connect with? Who are the type of people you want to partner with? If you guys ask those questions, who are those actual people? People will offer it up on a silver platter. They'll say, here are the people. Here are the types of companies. When you do that, you can rack your own network, the people that you know, and offer them up, bridge those connections. Same thing as with IIA. Anything that happens when I introduce Keith and Jeff, anything that they do forever is going to come back to me. They're going to think positively of me for that experience. So that's how you guys, the world has a way of really self-correcting. I promise you that if you adopt this mentality of any time you're communicating with someone that you want to establish a connection with, if you lead with, how can I serve them before serving my own interests, I guarantee you, you are going to make that person feel more valued. They're going to hold you in a higher regard. And if something does come positively from that connection, it will reap you benefits for years. So always try to help others first, because I mean it when I say it, it's oftentimes the most efficient way to help ourselves grow and advance. Make sense? Awesome. The next one is kind of personal. It is very personal, actually. How many of you guys have ever made fun of somebody? Teased somebody? I have. How many of you guys have ever really regretted it? Like felt bad about it afterwards? I had a really rough relationship with my brother growing up. I would tease him. He would beat me up. I would tease him because he beat me up. He would beat me up because I teased him. It was a vicious cycle for many years. And I always felt this need to make fun of him because I just thought that he was kind of a weird guy. He was into things that I didn't really understand. And then actually this whole thing changed in college. I got a call from him one time and I was on speaker. I was with one of my best friends, Tyler. And we were supposed to be driving back home together. And he said that he was going to stay because he was going to some sort of like board game festival, if you will. And so I said, Tom, that's so, probably, something I can't say here, lame. And like, I was just kind of reaming him on it and making fun of him. And like, part of me is like, my friends are on speaker, they can hear it, and I'm doing this openly. And then one of my friends, Tyler, who's always grounded me, looks at me and he goes, why do you care? Why do you care what he's doing? And he was like, you're an asshole. Of course, because it's worth it. And from that moment, like one of my good friends actually bringing that down for me, I was like, he was right. Why did I care what this person was doing? His actions were inconsequential to me, did not represent me. But you know what my actions did? My actions were really not me just making fun of my brother because it was my brother. It was me projecting my own insecurities on other people. And I began to appreciate that act of talking negatively about other people as just that. It's never about that other person. What they do doesn't matter to you, to your life, to your career. It's a projection of your own insecurity. And it made that act of talking badly about people much more difficult, and I very seldomly do it now. And I immediately, when I started Dreams for Kids, I implemented this as one of our core principles of office culture. And that's because I realized that when we're talking with people in a professional environment, one of the most efficient ways to ruin your reputation, your chances for success, are to talk negatively about people around you behind their back. And you guys all know this, that if someone's doing work that's affecting your work, your ability to succeed, that needs to go to a senior official, a boss, someone who can fix it. But in a professional setting, if you're bad-mouthing someone because they're not up to your standards, just think about this situation. If I'm here and I talk about, what's your name?
Steven.
Steven. If I'm sitting here talking to Steven about, what's your name?
Maria.
What is it?
Maria.
Maria. So if I'm talking to Steven about Maria and how Maria's not getting her TPS reports done, and oh my God, I can't believe it. So now what happens is that when I walk away from this conversation with Steven, you know what I've just done? I've effectively made sure that Steven can't trust me. Because how does Steven know that I'm not going to go back to, what's your name? Caitlin. How does Steven know that I'm not going to go to Caitlin and talk trash about him behind his back? I promise you guys that talking negatively about others behind their back is one of the quickest ways to tarnish your reputation. And if you think about the people that you really respect in your life, your bosses, your friends, anybody, they are the people who never really have anything bad to say about anybody else because they're sound in who they are. So I really emphasize that when we're communicating professionally, you always stay away from that because it's so crucial. So one of the last principles, and probably one of the most important, is just to address something that a lot of people don't really talk about. Putting yourself out there in front of an audience, meeting new people, is a very vulnerable activity. There's a lot of anxiety around that act. Would you guys agree with that? That is a very real, very natural thing. For a long time when I was at conferences, I used to literally have paper towels stuffed in both my pockets because I would be sweating profusely because I didn't think I was smart enough. Because I was scared that I wasn't going to contribute value to these conversations. And then I got a piece of advice that really transformed all this. It was one phrase that a friend of mine gave me. And he said, rather than going to these conferences, going to these events, and saying to yourself, man, no one there is going to appreciate what I say, people aren't going to think that I'm attractive or good looking enough, people aren't going to think that my ideas are smart. He said, imagine every person in the room sees you exactly the way you'd like to be seen. I will say it one more time. Imagine that everyone in the room sees you exactly the way you'd like to be seen. Putting forth that one question or statement causes you to get away from all those negative things that you're avoiding. And it enables you to focus on the positive values, virtues that you want to manifest. And you guys, when we ask ourselves that question going into any event, whether I'm coming to this, whether you're going to your boardroom, whether it's actually going out with friends on this weekend, we're not thinking about what we don't want to do. If you think about how do I want to be perceived? I want to be perceived as kind, as interested, as a good listener, as energetic, as crazy. If you're constantly thinking about those positive manifestations, you know what you're going to be more likely to do? Actually embody those things, as opposed to being nervous, being too inside of my head. So that one statement really changed everything. And when you focus on those positive things, it's one of the most effective ways to transform anxiety with excitement. Anxiety can usually be summed up by 2 words: not knowing. When we don't know how we're going to be received, when we don't know if we're going to be successful, when we don't know what people are going to think. But the quickest way to get away from that, guys, is to focus on what we know we want for ourselves. Focus on internal motivators, what you know to be true, what you want to do. And I promise you that you will spin your gears forever trying to please others as opposed to actually understanding what it is that you want to do, how you want to be in the world. And to manifest that instead is a much more virtuous and effective way to meet people and to operate as a professional. So those are the 8 principles. I hope that we were able to write those all down. And we're sitting in this room. I got to speak to Dream Careers in DC last year. And we had a conversation afterwards that was really powerful. And I'm happy that I get to include this here before we have a few questions. Someone came up to me after the session, and he said, "This is like really great advice." And he said, "But I'm just so nervous whenever I'm in any position to connect with people." And he said, "It's so hard." And one of the things that I want to leave you guys on is an acknowledgement of what he said is very true. Putting yourself out there, reaching out to people who are more senior than you, actually taking the time to search, to ask yourself what I'm passionate about. A lot of this stuff is not easy. At the same time, what I promise you guys is kind of what we said earlier, is that the things that you work hard for, those moments where you choose to live on your edge, where you choose to push yourself, where you choose to make that call to the person that you've seen on LinkedIn, when you decide to ask your boss for more work or a project that might be a little bit out of your realm of knowledge right now, that those moments that you push yourself are going to be the moments that you remember, are going to be those catalytic moments that you remember as like the time you developed most as a human, as a professional. And what's awesome is that you guys are here for 2-3 months. You have an opportunity, whether you love your job and you go in skipping every single day, or whether you can't wait to get out at 5 o'clock. There is time that is yours. And I promise you guys that if you use some of these principles, the ones that make sense, and you guys commit to actually challenging yourself and living on your edge and doing some of these things, that you can make a really, really incredible impact on your career success in the next few months while you're here. That's my time, guys. Thank you so much. You guys want to do them as a group or as just come up? Now you guys, it's 8, so I'll stay up. You guys, I mean, I'm more than happy to chat with you guys about anything that might be on your mind. But good luck this summer. Also, you can, if you want to check out more of my stuff, go to itsandrewhorn.com, and you can sign up for my listserv. And I also post a lot of events about kind of networking and entrepreneurial stuff in New York City. So that's itsandrewhorn.com. So what are you up to in New York City? That's awesome. That's awesome. So we do, I like to say that it's kind of corny. We work with people who want to change the world. So whether it's nonprofits or like coaches and speakers, like we like to help people kind of take what they're really good at. So whether that's like, water filtration in Africa or, self-improvement, recruiting, and into a business that like they can make money off of. Yeah. So